So BYU has then been kind of, in the other thing I listened to, you talked a little bit about how successful BYU was during these years with all of these grad students, all of this grant money and publications.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was important that BYU be successful?
Yeah, so this was at a time where I just came on as a faculty member. There were other new young faculty members in evolutionary biology, and we had a real synergy among ourselves. I brought with me from the American Museum a new technology, which was automated DNA sequencing, and nobody had seen anything like that in the Western United States. I brought that technology with me, and we realized that we were able to generate data faster than just about any university at the time. And because of that, we would go to NSF and we would present them with tremendous amounts of data. I mean, we were giving them preliminary data, which was more than was typically accomplished by people who were finishing their grant proposals. Right. And because of that, I went through a time period where I did they used to do submissions every 6 months, and I made sure to submit every 6 months. And I went through a time period where I received 5 grants, one right after the other during that time period. And that was unheard of. And it wasn't just me, there were other faculty in the group who were doing this, to the point where at NSF, there was a joke among the program directors that every time they saw a grant come from BYU, a proposal coming in from BYU, there was this giant whooshing sound of all the money flying towards Provo. And so it was an exciting time because we really had a leg up on the competition. I would go to the entomology meetings, and I'd have a whole flock of students with me. And often, I didn't dress them this way, often they were in white shirts and ties.
Not me.
So it became kind of the joke of, oh, here comes Whiting and those evolution missionaries, right?
Yeah. Well, I went to many of those meetings, and I remember some of the undergrads in particular, like, we got to dress up for this. We got to have a tie on and a white shirt.
Yeah, and it was great. It was fine, but it was a real special time for me. I was incredibly prolific at the time, both in terms of publications and in ideas.
Yeah.
We had a real large group, and many in that group have gone on to have really successful careers within the field of evolutionary biology.
Yeah, that was, for me, that was a really important time. What effect do you think teaching evolution over these last 50 years, not just you, but others, but teaching it here, what effect has that had on acceptance of evolution on a more church-wide or even, state, kind of community level? Have you seen enough? I mean, we've looked at this a little bit, but
so we've looked at this, and we have a little bit of data on this, and this is not data I've done, but people in the group have looked at these data, and what I can tell you is more kind of anecdotally, where 25 years ago, when I would start teaching evolution, I could figure that about a third of the class had serious problems reconciling evolution with their faith, where a third of them came in sitting down, a little bit with a chip on their shoulder, feeling, why do I have to take this evolution class where they're teaching me stuff I know it isn't true? And I would see this in the student reviews, right? So a good percentage of students were confident that I was going to hell. I often tell them, well, I might be going to hell, but it's not for teaching evolution, right? But that has changed. That has changed in the last 25 years, where the majority of students who sit in my 400 level class, the majority of them have reconciled it, have gone through the struggles. Part of that is we're doing a better job of teaching it at the 100 level.
The earlier on.
At the earlier on level.
Yeah.
Part of it is that this is a generation of students who came from parents who were former students and who had learned this information.
Right.
What we see with our BYU students, especially those within the sciences, is a much greater acceptance of evolution. We also see it among our faculty, right? So when I began and I was teaching, even within what the college at the time, there were a handful of outspoken anti-evolutionary biologists who were on the faculty. That has changed. They're gone. We don't have that anymore. There is a greater acceptance among faculty, and I think there's a greater acceptance by the administration, just because they keep seeing all these grants get funded. They keep seeing all these high-profile publications. They recognize it's a real academic discipline.
Have you seen a shift in the religion department as well, maybe, or not, or has that stayed pretty much?
I think I have seen a shift. It is now relatively rare where we get pushback from the religion department, and where we do get the pushback, it's typically from the older demographic of faculty who, for whatever reason, still are uncomfortable with the idea of evolution and LDS theology.
Yeah. But
But among the younger religious faculty, it doesn't seem to be much of an issue anymore.
are there other departments that have had to go through these same growing pains, like with other, was Age of the Earth a problem, and the geologists have had to go through this? Or?
Yeah, so I mean, when we talk about evolution, we're mostly focused within the Department of Biology, right? When we talk about it. And we used to be zoology, and we used to have different names and stuff. We have people who do evolutionary biology outside of the Department of Biology. So people in microbiology use it, people in plant and wildlife sciences use it. But also over in geology, for instance, we've had a number of really strong paleontologists who have been proponents of evolution and have done a fine job of teaching evolution, but also dealing with age of the earth issues, right? So I mean, there was a time where the geologists had to struggle with all the students who thought the earth was only 6,000 years old. And they would have to, carefully point out that you can't really explain anything in geology in just 6,000 years.